Today, we're diving into something pretty intense. Corrosive poisons. We're talking about chemicals so aggressive they can literally dissolve human tissue on contact. We're going to get right into the raw chemistry that makes them one of the most destructive forces out there.
So you have to wonder, right? What is actually happening at a molecular level that causes such complete and utter devastation? Figuring that out is the key to understanding everything else we're about to cover. So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get a solid definition of what these poisons are. Then, we'll look at the terrifying effects when they are unleashed on the human body. After that, we'll cover the desperate race to stop them. And finally, we'll touch on the chilling reality of corrosives being used as a weapon. All right, let's start at square one. What exactly are we dealing with when we use a term like corrosive poisons? Well, it all comes down to some really aggressive chemistry. Basically, we're talking about two main culprits: really strong mineral acids, think sulfuric acid, and powerful alkalis, like caustic soda. Now here's the crucial thing to get. These aren't your typical poisons that need to get into your bloodstream to work. No, their damage is brutally direct. It's localized. They destroy whatever tissue they touch, and they do it instantly. The way they do it is like a brutal three-punch combo. First, the corrosive literally rips water molecules right out of your cells, leaving them totally dehydrated in a split second. Then, it cooks the proteins inside those cells, making them clump together and just stop working. It's kind of like frying an egg. The protein changes permanently. And finally, it messes with your blood's hemoglobin, the very thing that carries oxygen, turning it into a useless dark gunk called hematin. It's a terrifyingly efficient chemical assault. So we know the chemistry. But what does that three-part attack actually do to a person? Let's follow the devastating path these poisons carve through the human body.
And you have to understand, there is absolutely no delay here. The instant that substance makes contact, the damage begins. This isn't some slow-acting poison from a spy movie. This is a chemical fire that starts burning you from the inside out right away. For the person who ingested it, they feel an immediate, overwhelming burning that traces the exact path the liquid took, from their mouth down their throat, through the esophagus, and into the stomach. Every single inch of that journey is just agony and tissue being obliterated. Now, here's where it gets interesting from a diagnostic point of view. While both acids and alkalis are devastating, they leave behind different clues. An acid, for instance, tends to make tissue shrivel up and can cause constipation, but an alkali, that often causes massive swelling and serious internal bleeding. For doctors, these subtle signs can be the key to figuring out exactly what they're fighting.
And that initial burn? That's just the beginning of a horrific domino effect. Early on, the unbelievable pain throws the body in shock. A little later, the stomach wall itself can literally be eaten all the way through. And for the people who manage to survive this, well, the delayed effects can be a life sentence. Internal scarring can seal the esophagus shut, making it almost impossible to ever eat or drink normally again.
Which leads us to maybe the most critical part of this, the frantic race against time to treat this kind of poisoning. When you're up against something so fast and so destructive, what can you possibly do? Okay, this slide right here is incredibly important. The right move can save a life, the wrong one can make everything so much worse. Giving things like milk or egg whites can help coat the tissue and neutralize the substance, and this is a huge don't, you never ever induce vomiting. All that does is bring that corrosive agent right back up, burning the throat and esophagus for a second time. And another big mistake is using the wrong neutralizer, like giving someone who swallowed acid an alkaline carbonate. That can cause a violent chemical reaction, creating a ton of gas that can actually rupture the already damaged stomach. Now, once someone gets to a hospital, the interventions get a lot more advanced. Of course, morphine for the unimaginable pain. IV fluids are absolutely critical to fight off shock. Doctors will often use powerful steroids to try and stop that internal scarring we talked about. And in the worst-case scenario, if the throat swells completely shut, they have to perform a tracheostomy, surgically creating an airway in the neck just to keep the patient breathing. But these poisonings aren't always accidents. And now we have to shift gears and talk about something much, much darker. The deliberate use of corrosives as a weapon. This is where the science of this gets truly sinister. There's a specific, chilling term for this kind of attack: vitriolage. And let's be crystal clear, this is not an accident. It's a calculated assault designed to inflict the most visible and permanent damage possible, usually driven by these incredibly powerful emotions like jealousy or pure revenge. This quote, it really cuts right to the heart of the cruelty here. The goal isn't just to hurt someone. It's to permanently disfigure them, to literally try and erase their identity by destroying their face or taking their sight. It is one of the most personal and devastating forms of violence imaginable.
And because of that devastating intent, the law comes down hard. The legal system recognizes just how horrific this crime is. Depending on where it happens and the specifics of the attack, the punishment can be, well, it can be life in prison.
And that leaves us with this one last, really troubling question, doesn't it? We've seen the chemistry, we've seen the horrifying impact on the body, we know the legal consequences are as severe as it gets. So, why do these attacks still happen? That's a question that's really worth thinking about.